I said, and not beat yourself up. I don't want to hear that whiny, beat yourself up speech. That is so sick, man. You know, you guys need to get back on and say, Rock's right. I'm going to do it. The good news is I got my wake-up call, and I'm kicking butt today. I'm getting on that phone. I can make phone calls right from where I am. I'm laying in bed yet. I haven't even gotten out of bed. I'm sitting in my easy chair. I'm sitting on the porch. I'm taking the dog for a walk and making calls. I'm driving around in my vehicle making calls. Guess what? Besides being in that chair, I made calls from everywhere. It's easy to make a phone call. You can have a Bluetooth thing in your ear. You can have earbuds in your ear. You know, you can have it on speakerphone. You can have it broadcasting on Bluetooth through the sound system in your vehicle. You can make calls from anywhere today. You can be on the top of a mountain. You can be in a valley. You can be laying on the beach. Guess what? I have done business everywhere. All these places that I'm talking about, I have been active. Action Jackson, baby. I have been out there making it happen. So don't give me your whiny excuses. My gosh, you act as though I'm dumb. If I can do it, the one time was a loser, the one time that thought he was the biggest piece of crap ever to walk the face of the earth, the guy who used to hate himself and punch himself in the face in a mirror, I didn't have low self-esteem. I had no self-esteem. I wanted to die. Now, if this guy that wanted to die can come up out of the ashes and make something of himself, what the hell is your excuse? Seriously, I mean, you're going to try to throw an excuse at me? Who the hell do you think you're talking to? I have been around the block counseling thousands of people over the years. Excuses are useless. Don't up in the morning. I mean, what the heck are you here for? Why are you sucking air? Well, give me a good reason. What is your purpose? What is the plan? So if you haven't laid that out, then that's the first thing you should be doing right now. Right now, get your pen out. Get your computer out. Get your stuff out and start writing down. What is my plan? Because I do have a purpose and I do have dreams and I want those dreams. They're not fantasies. They're not wishes. They're real. The good news is you can do it. The good news is that you can do it. And you need to believe it. You need to believe it. This is where faith starts coming in. Don't tell me about your faith and then let me look at your life and see that you don't walk in faith. Faith is something you do. Faith is something you do. It's not something you talk about or theorize about or, it is action, baby. It's a do word. You got to do it. You got to do it. Because if you don't, there's always going to be someone around you that is. And that is going to wear at you, and you're going to feel worse about yourself and worse about yourself, and you're going to sit back and, oh, I'm really happy for them. Yeah, you sound like it. You don't sound too happy for others. You sound like you are just ready to throw in the towel, man. I mean, come on. I am grateful that after I started 12 steps in my life, that I started to gain enough belief that I could actually do something, because I put it to action in a rock and roll business and in my jobs at the same time, sometimes working 2 jobs in the rock and roll business, and my peak was 3 jobs in rock and roll races at the same time. 3 jobs in rock and roll races at the same time, and I always managed to find my way to an AA or an NA meeting every day. A lot of days I went twice. I'd work 3rd shift. I'd go to the coffee bar in the morning. I'd have coffee with a few guys, and I'd hit an early morning Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, typically about 7 o'clock. Or no, I'd get off at 7 o'clock. So typically by 8 o'clock, I'd be at a morning meeting, get out of that meeting after an hour, and try to get myself into bed by maybe 9 or 10 in the morning. Sleep for 2 or 3 hours, get up, do a part-time gig. And you guys don't realize by 8 o'clock, unless you've done it, I'd be at a morning meeting, get out of that meeting after an hour, and try to get myself into the people out there that are successful, all they really did was they just outworked 9 or 10 in the morning. You have been lazy, sleep for 2 or 3. You just don't work as hard as the other people do, and that's why you're broke. If you don't want to be broke anymore, trying to live under the poverty levels of $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month, I mean, how the heck do you live on $1,000 or $2,000 a month? How do you do that? It's crazy. Oh yeah, but I get a food card. Oh yeah, but I get energy assistance. Oh yeah, but I got help with my health care. Well, make enough money so you don't have to worry about health care, okay? I'm overcoming this. I don't need to go get any penicillin. I don't need to get any amoxicillin. I felt quite a bit better yesterday, and, I'm believing that today it'll be gone. But, it poured out last night, which means there's whatever, in the air was washed all around and moved all around. So that high-pressure system or whatever they call it that happens, yeah. So I had a little sneeze attack this morning, and it's pretty gross. And, I would have much rather not grab the telephone when I had to today. But I rescued you guys because you guys need to realize this is your broadcast. This is You Are the News. Hebrews News. Hebrews News and Use. Okay? Hebrews News and Use. You're the news. You're supposed to be the journalist. And you're not working for Fox News. You're not working for Newsmax. You get an opportunity to work for Yah by bringing a great, powerful news story to the world. By invitation to say, bring your best story, your most positive story, your good news going on in your life. And somehow in the good news, if you have the ability to tie in Yahushua HaMashiach as the hero of your life, because you know what? I couldn't have done anything that I just told you. I couldn't think the way I think. I couldn't have acted the way I acted. I couldn't have done anything without the he and me concept going on. It's the he and me that's greater than he that's in the world. It's him that fulfills the testimony, because I don't have to brag or boast on me. I can say, I know who I was. But when he came in me, the good news is success comes. Your real success. And it's like, you're going to tell me that you can't have an incredible success story every week of the Yah in your life, the Yah in you? If that's the case, wow, I really feel sad on your behalf. I don't know any other way to say it besides that's pathetic. If you can't go through a week of your life, I mean, I can go through this last week and I can take the worst situation, which was getting sick enough to the point this week that I literally threw up, which I haven't done for years. And I can go ahead and say, and I saw how my body responded to the nutrition that I fought back with, and the positive proclamations and the positive attitude that I had to fight back with just to get back to zero again. And the good news is, you may get tested by a demonic infirmity that's going to attack your body, but if you have faith that all the things that Yah's taught you and shown you along the way to overcome, and you start proclaiming and decreeing and declaring throughout your week yourself out of bed. I mean, there was one day this week that I slept probably 16, 17, maybe 18 hours in that day. Because the one thing that I know that was a for sure that I learned about my body and about health over the years is sometimes your number one healing agent is rest. And, you know, I've been trying to tell Ahava, for example, how important it is that she goes to bed at night, because I already know physically she's not as fit as I was back in my 20s. And I've never seen her to be one that didn't require a lot of sleep before, and for her to ever get to the point where she can, you know, sleep 2 hours, go to work all day, and be active in her ministries that she is in for transformation, and working part-time gigs to be able to make more money than the job so she can fire her boss eventually, that for her to do 2 hours of sleep is not fair for me to put that expectation on her or anybody. So I wouldn't do it. I will tell you, if you're one of those, well, I need my 8. If you think you need 8 hours, I think you're a bologna sandwich that walks with legs. Okay? You're full of bologna. It's not 8 hours. You can very, very well be rested in 5, 6, you know. You might have to start with just 7, but eventually you can switch it to 6, and then eventually you can get it down to 5. You know, you can go on a lot less sleep. And then when you got a Shabbat, you can just totally sack out, right, and get your rest. But if you run yourself out and you position yourself to get sick, and sometimes we're sick just because we let our bodies wear down, and we just gave too much, and We put ourselves out there too much, and then the attack comes with an infirmity when we weren't ready for it, and it's going to knock us out. But all I can tell you is if you fight back, you can do it. So just like you have to fight against that sickness, you have to fight against the soul sickness of poverty. There's a soul sickness called poverty. And most of poverty happens between your ears. That's where the sickness is. Your stinking thinking, your wrong way to think about life is why you're in poverty, is why you struggle. Because you don't think right about life. You don't think right about money. You don't think right about effort, action, work, ethics, morals, values. Stinking thinking will rob you. But I'm here to tell you that if that's been your past, you can change that, and you can get the right thinking going on, and you can do it. You can reset those goals that you maybe wrote down once before, and maybe you can put a better plan of action together to get those goals. Because you can't just write out I want a brand new car. Okay, that's kind of gross because we don't even know if you want, a $12,000 brand new car, or if you want a $12,000 used car, or if you want a brand new Tesla, or if you want the brand new electric Hummer that's $120,000. So you have to be specific, and then you have to set a plan of action that is, you got to caution yourself on what realistic is, but the effort has got to match up with the timeline of when you believe you're going to get it. I see people set goals to do something, and it's like, well, I'm going to do that, in 60 days. But yet you look at their plan of action, and it's like, your plan of action doesn't match up with your hitting that in 60 days. It's never going to happen. You can't do that. It's not logical. You're not planning on making enough phone calls. You're not planning on following through enough. You're not planning on putting forth the faith with action. Faith can only carry you to the scene of action. And if you never take the action, you really never had the faith, if that makes sense. And it's a process. It's part of the process of becoming a wise person, actually. You can't get shachma, you can't get wisdom without putting the knowledge and the understanding of that knowledge into faith. You have to be able to put it forth by faith, or it's just never going to happen. But if you put together realistic goals, realistic plan of action to achieve those goals, and you apply that knowledge and that understanding into the faith, and you take the faith, you can do it. You can do it. I'm here to tell you that as long as you're being honest with yourself and you're being honest with your Creator about the plan of action that you put forth in life to be able to achieve, faith will win. You can do it. But don't think that faith is something that it's not. Faith has to be what it is, and then you can do it. Faith has to be real faith. Faith cannot be some kind of game you play with yourself. That's not what faith is. So you have already lost before you win. You can't create some kind of a smoke and mirror game with the world to make people think you're working. That's fraud. That's fake. That's a game. Don't play it. Set a real plan of action and get out there and do it. You can do it. I'm here to tell you, like my champions, my leaders told me, my heroes told me, Rock, you can do it. Rock, you can do it. I'll never forget the day that I asked Jerry Meadows, and I was already succeeding. I was already making pretty good money. I think I was pulling about a part-time, okay? Part-time, I think I was pulling about $2,700 a month, okay? Nothing to write home to Mom about, but hey, it was an extra, $600-700 a week, right? Over $100 a day, part-time, right? So if you're bringing in $100 a day and you're only putting in 2, 3, 4 hours a day, then you're making somewhere between $25 and $50 an hour. Okay? Now, that might not seem that significant right now because minimum wage at Walmart, there's places that'll start you at $24 an hour. So it doesn't seem like a big deal. But if you go back to my day, when I did this in the 80s, minimum wage was $3.35 an hour. So what's that? Almost 10 times more per hour is kind of the start pay at a job. 10 times more. 10x, baby. Grant Cardone, 10x, right? Different world today. So you really can't even listen to my testimonies about money because most of you that didn't live back in the 80s or work back in the 80s or work in the early 90s, you don't get it. You don't understand because, I'm pretty sure minimum wage went up by the early 90s. It might have been in the fours. It might have been $4.25 an hour or something. I don't know. But part-time, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50 an hour, not too bad. Now, making that in my networking business really was not that big of a deal because I had already broke the glass ceiling, and as a DJ, a disc jockey, owning my own business, I had already started charging $150 an hour. When I started the company, my rate was either $50 an hour or $75 an hour when I would do a gig for somebody. But by the time I had gotten older in my business and I was in my third year, I realized how valuable I was. I started comparing myself to, at that time it was Boogie Time Duke and Boomer and Rich Freeze, yeah. And Rich and I are really good friends, by the way. He's a believer. Rich was probably the most cross-eyed person that I had ever met, but he did not let his challenge with his eyes, he didn't let it bother him because he worked at Sargento and was one of the top people at Sargento, and he did gigs on weekends. And everybody loved Rich. But what started happening is the top DJs in the area, all of a sudden people were like, why would we hire him when we could hire Rock and Roll Ricey? So I was better than the best in the area. I became, I believe, and I'm bragging on myself again, I'm bragging on the Ya and me. I became the best. And the reason that I became the best wasn't for moving from 50 to 75 to 100 to 125 or even 150 an hour. I wasn't as motivated about charging my clients 150 an hour as I was to be able to be the best. And a lot of that is a reverse motivation because I was so used to being the worst. I was the worst in my little family that I grew up in. I was the black sheep. Then when I take all the races, I felt like I was the worst. And then when I looked at the people that I went to high school with, because I got arrested more than anybody else did, and there was more negative talk about me than anybody else in Plymouth High School, then I was the worst. And I had gotten so used to being the worst, and people telling me that I was a loser, that I was no good, that I was evil, that I was rotten, I was nothing but an effing little alcoholic, oh, you're just a drug addict, different things that people said to me, I really believed I was the worst. So the thought in any area of my life, becoming the best, wow, that meant more to me than money. And you know what? It still is. I don't want Love, Inc. to have the most money. I want Love, Inc. to have the most love. Love, Inc. is my rock and roll races of today. Because I don't do rock and roll races as a business anymore. And I don't charge $150 an hour or more with inflation. Obviously, that would be over $1,000 an hour today. I don't charge you guys $1,000 an hour to get more love into this ministry or give more love from this ministry. I don't do that. Because I already believe the quality of where we are is really significantly better than most ministries I've seen out there. So I already believe if I look at from the same eyeballs of where I was with rock and roll races, oh, there's these great famous DJs of Sheboygan County, these great famous DJs of the state of Wisconsin, these great famous DJs of the Midwest. So if I look at, okay, there's these great famous ministries that are all over the place around us, do I want to bring in more fundraising, more money than they got? Or do I want to give away more love than they give? Sometimes I believe that some of these ministries that bring in millions of dollars a week probably give away less love than we do. So therefore, when Jerry Meadows told me, Rock, you can do it. And I sat back and I remember saying to him as I felt frustrated when I was in the thousands, just making a mere, $2,000 or $3,000 a month. I remember saying to him, he's probably about 27 years old. I haven't even shut down rock and roll races yet. And I remember saying, Jerry, what does a guy like me normally do with a business like this? And to my surprise, because it was not the answer that I would have thought that I would have got at all. It wasn't even close. He said, well, that's easy. They quit. You always had that kind of laugh, you know. They quit. And I looked at him like, they quit. I said, what do you mean? He said, Rock, most people don't and won't rise above their obstacles like you have. They quit. He said, you're a winner. You can do it. I remember another time that I had been making some mistakes as a businessman and took some losses. You know, my income was going up and down. There was a leg that fell apart. And when that team fell apart, I lost about $800 a month of my residual. And there was a lot of personality problems. People were fighting with each other. And next thing you know, a bunch of people quit. And that was when I went out and I took on a part-time job at a farm. I believe that would have been 1994. So I would have been, 29 years old, right? And I remember that I thought, well, if I can just bring in that $800 a month, that would be great because that's where we're budgeted and I don't want to have a shortfall on paying my rent. And my wife said, you know, I can go out and get a job. And I said, no, I promised you that you could leave your job and I would bring in the money if you would be a full-time mom and homeschool these children. By 1994, we had two, one in diapers. Nehemiah was already out of diapers, but he was on his way to being a homeschool kid. So she had to prepare herself and be there to see their first steps and to hear their first words and hope that the first words, when they said mama, was not to the daycare person. Like a lot of moms have to do today. I had some real dreams. I had some real motivators. I wanted to be her hero. I wanted to show her that I was a real man and that I could take care of business. So when that happened, I didn't want to let her down. So I took on a farm job and I milked 300 cows every morning before I went to an office in a suit and tie. I would actually do a shower in the milk house. Had a little towel or a little curtain, you know, on the one side of the bulk room where all the bulk, you know, big bulk tanks were for the milk. And I'd quick shower up, and I'd throw on a suit. I had a suit waiting in my Cadillac in the back seat. I'd throw on a suit. I'd drive myself through traffic, be down in Milwaukee by 9 a.m. I was out in Plymouth, out in the country, out on the Webb Farms, Summit Farms. So it was about an hour drive. So I had to be out of that farm to get to work on time. And it was actually the South Side, Carl's Rental Center. This was before I got in with U.S. Environmental. Just so I could punch that clock and sell for Carl. Drive around the airport selling propane to the different hangars for their lift trucks and selling to the convenience stores those propane tanks that you see out in front of convenience stores, we're the ones that started that. I was a revolutionary, and I was, able to get people to put tanks under lock and key in front of their convenience stores. So I was selling convenience stores, and I was selling to airport hangar leaders, if you will. And I would book appointments for my own business on my 10 o'clock break, and I booked some more appointments on my noon break, and I booked some more appointments on my 2 o'clock break. And you're sitting back and you're saying to me, you mean you worked on your break? Yeah. In fact, the reason I do a 9:57 a.m., which is a 11:57 a.m. for those in the Midwest Central Time Zone, is so that you guys are actually, if you can't work during your break, at least you can go to school and you can be educated with Mind of Messiah motivation. And that's the good news, is that is going to start back up again this week. So as dogged, persistent as I'm going to be in seeing business owners here in Phoenix, faith with action, action by faith, as hard as I'm going to push myself to see those business owners, I am going to teach other entrepreneurs how to be effective, because I believe with these principles inside them that they can do it. I believe they can do it if they will practice these principles in all their affairs. You must practice these principles in all your affairs. Now, for the person that just shows up at 11:57 a.m., Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I think they're going to miss a whole lot if they don't get up for prayer with us. At 6:37 in the morning. I think they're going to miss prayer. I think they're going to miss some worship and some thanks, some praising. I think they're going to miss putting out into the atmosphere some positive declarations. I think they're going to miss some wisdom teaching in the wealth of wisdom. They're going to miss some morals and values that they could obtain from the parables of Yeshua, or the morals and values of Yeshua. I think they're going to miss promises that they can live their life by. There is a way that I found to start the day that I know if you apply those principles, that in and of itself, if that's all you do, if you don't even come on at night or you don't even come on in the midday, there's enough there just in the morning for you to do it. For you to do it. You can do it if you do that. See, there was another time that I'm talking about when I had to readjust my schedule and I had to tell myself, Rock, you can do it. I had to humble myself to my leader and tell him, I'm doing everything part-time I can with this, but I just lost all this money. I'm going to need to go get a part-time job. And he said, okay. So I booked those appointments at 10 o'clock, at noon, and at 2 o'clock, so that I had a 6 o'clock and an 8 o'clock ready to go at night somewhere in the state of Wisconsin. I might have had to drive 45 minutes to get there. I might have had to drive 2 hours to get there. But I was going to have a 6 o'clock and an 8 o'clock on my schedule every night because I knew 5 and 6 nights a week, 5 and 6 nights a week, 5 and 6 nights a week on my part-time business. If I didn't run that hard 5 and 6 nights a week, I was not going to fire my boss. It was not going to happen. You got to realize when I had Rock and Roll Riceys, I did fire my boss, and at 27 years old, I didn't have a job. I didn't need a job. I had quite a bit of money coming in. $4,000 a month, $5,000 a month, $6,000 a month coming in from your own businesses in the early 90s was some pretty good money for a 27-year-old kid. Now again, compared to today's economy and how much money would be worth today, some of you are thinking that was pretty good money. Yeah, you're not even thinking right. Compare it by going ahead and multiplying it times 2 or 3 or 4, and then you'll have a lot more realistic look at what the value of that money was. See, money in and of itself has no real value. It's just paper. The only value that money ever really has is what you can exchange it for. So there's something that you want that exchange process is going to give you, and that's what gives it the value. So if you don't set a goal beyond just cash, and you don't start looking at, okay, when I do this, this, and this, and I bring in this much cash, then I can buy this. I can get a new Harley Davidson. I can get myself a new boat. I can get myself a Polaris, four-wheeler, little doom buggy type, deal. I can go up in the mountains with. I can get myself a new truck. I can get myself a new trailer, travel trailer. I'll be able to afford the payments. Payments for a truck like that I got. Both trucks are about the same, about, depending on your credit and what you had to do to get it, you're going to set up a payment of somewhere between $700 and $1,000 a month. And you got 2 of them. Well, okay, so I need around, $1,500 or more to have 2 trucks. That's just the reality of how you need to look at the money, if indeed you're able to even take out a loan and have debt like that. Is there a smarter way? Yeah, pay cash. It's called savings. Are you able to buy things outright? If you can't